In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a full tummy adjustment on a bodice. This is the men's Leicester from 5 out of 4 patterns. And right now I have 3 sizes printed out, the extra large, the 2XL, and the 3XL. One sort of quick and dirty way of doing this adjustment is to just start at the underarm and grade out to the side you need and then grade back in. But sometimes that leads to just not the best fit. A lot of times it can make it hard to get the sweatshirt on over the belly, especially when you grade back into the chest size. So I'm going to show you this adjustment. And I just think it's good to know how to do things the right way. How about that? So right now I have that all 3 sizes. I wanted to point out that it's a 2-inch difference at the waist between the XL and the 3XL. And then the hem is only about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna really quickly go around the XL, and you'll do a full tummy adjustment anytime you just need to add some width just to the stomach. Maybe the hips and the chest are in an XL, and your waist is at the high end of a 3XL. That's going to be the experiment we're working with. Now, I will actually back up a little bit and say, if your waist is just one size bigger, I think it's perfectly fine to just grade out at the waist. It's when you get to where your waist is 2 sizes bigger and you're talking about at the upper end of that second size, that's when I would suggest doing this adjustment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start a couple inches below the underarm. On a sweatshirt pattern, the underarm is already relaxed, so it's going to sit lower than a typical bodice. So I'm going to go with 2 inches below, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball it because, you know, this is what we're doing here. Get my pin. So usually what you're going to want to do is have this, if you have a grain line on your bodice, you're going to want it to be perpendicular to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it perpendicular to the fold line here. And I'm going to come in just like so. And then I'm going to grab a longer ruler. I'm going to make another mark that's perpendicular to my first one that's going to be parallel with the grain line. And this one so that is not the bust point that I circled there. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to come over this far. You can come a little bit more shallow into the side seam. It frankly doesn't really matter, I'll be honest. I like to make it a little closer to the center because that's where most of the extra size is going to be. It's not going to be over in the side, it's going to be closer to the center. So now when you cut it, what you're going to do is you're actually going to have a hinge right here. So you don't want to cut all the way through it. You want to get really close to it, but not all the way through. If you accidentally go through that point, just put a little tape on it. It's okay. So I've cut my hinge and I'm going to go out. I want the part at the waist, which is this most indented part here, to be 2 inches. That's the difference that I'm looking for at the waist measurement. So I'm actually going to use the grid on my cutting table and rotate this to where I have 2 inches right at the waist. Right here it's going to overlap, and you want to be far enough down the side seam so that the overlap doesn't go into the underarm there. I'm going to tape it down to hold that in place. Then I'm going to come over here at the hem, make sure I'm on screen. Just imagine I haven't actually made these cuts yet. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here at the hem and I'm going to cut straight across. It doesn't really matter where. I do it closer to the hem. And I'm going to move it down the difference between the extra large and the 3XL. So that was 3/4 of an inch. So I've got that moved down. And then I'm going to make the same cut right here, but I'm going to use this as a hinge. So it's not going to cut all the way through. I'm just going to be able to rotate it. And here what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it down the same amount that I overlap this. So it should be right about 2 inches. It's a little less. Yeah. So we'll go for a little less. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to even this out. So let me get some red paper underneath this. I always find it easiest to tape down one side and then remeasure so that I know that I'm getting what I want. And actually I think since I had already taped that. So I like to remeasure at the waist just to make sure that it's close. Whatever. Okay, so I've taped down the vertical. I'm going to tape this down. I'm going to now use some paper here and remeasure this to make sure it's about 3/4 of an inch. I highly suggest making a muslin so that you know how much extra length you need. Basically what you're going to do is at the end, you're going to try your top on. And if the front is longer than the back, then you need less in the front. If it's shorter than the back, then you need a little bit more length right here. You want it to sit straight from front to back. So I'm going to open this up about 2 inches, and the reason we want this to be the same is we want to make sure that this side seam is the same length as the back bodice side seam. So again, you can go ahead and measure it just with a regular flexible ruler and just match it to your back. The easy way to do it is to know how much you overlapped here, and you're going to add it in right there. Let me get my other red piece here. It's more than 2 inches. I also want it to be pretty close to vertical. Here we go. Because I don't want it to keep flaring out. That's going to look pretty goofy. Sorry, that was a technical term for it. All right. So I've got my 2 inches there. There we go. Now here, what we want to do is have a 90-degree angle here, so I'm going to trim this. I'm actually going to use a bit of white paper. So what we want to have is a 90-degree angle at the side seam, and then you're going to slowly swoop down to meet the front. You want it to be very gradual, nothing sharp. There you go. And there you have it. So that is the full tummy adjustment for a bodice. I've added quite a bit of width here at the waist. I know that you're going to want to bring this back in, but if you're using the back bodice that's still the XL, you're going to want this extra room just for ease of getting it over. If you're using the top with the band, you can use the band from the XL because it'll have 50% stretch and it'll be super stretchy. But by bringing this vertical, you'll still bring this front in a decent amount and it should look good. So there you go. That's how you do a front tummy adjustment on a bodice, or a full tummy adjustment, excuse me. I hope this helps make things more comfortable for you. Remember, never stop sewing, never stop growing. Thanks for following 5 out of 4. Give us a subscribe and be sure to hit the like. Let me know if you have any questions.